this is Kate. Welcome to my YouTube channel. In this clip, I will be continuing the conversation about how we use our unique voices to communicate with consciousness. If you are hearing me for the first time, I invite you to please look at my previous videos. I talk about consciousness, the interconnectedness of everything in existence, and how we as individuals and as a global community exist as consciousness in the context of consciousness. I also talk about the fact that how we communicate with consciousness is through a spiritual language, by a spiritual language, and that's the language of emotion. The vocabulary of that language is our feelings, and we need to really study this language. We need to practice this language so that we become proficient in its use, or fluent, if you like. The reason I speak as I do is because I want us to start to think about our body of consciousness as a body. It is, in fact, the other body of your duality. So your human aspect is one side of your duality. Your body of consciousness is the other part of your duality. Just as you have physical senses, you have the senses of consciousness, or subjective senses. Just as you have physical DNA that determines who you show up as, you have a spiritual makeup that determines your entry point into the physical world. And this is necessary because we have, as individuals, been mandated to demonstrate something unique and specific about the operation of consciousness. All expressions of life are consciousness in operation, and we have been mandated to demonstrate something unique about the formless. So Princess Charlotte, born into the British monarchy, and little, Nina Jones, born to drug-addicted parents who fight all the time and terrify her, are both equally legitimate, equally valid, equally equal expressions of consciousness. I know it doesn't seem to be equal on the surface, but it really is, and I will speak about that another day. I just want us to recognize that we have a body of consciousness. Everything in the physical world typifies something in the world of infinite creative potential. So just as you can believe in the tangibleness of you, of your human expression, in the reality of your human expression, I want you to start to believe in the tangibility and the reality of your body of consciousness. This is going to change for you what you believe is possible for you when it comes to the conscious use of imagination. And that is going to completely change the game when it comes to you manifesting your desires. Okay? So we spoke before about having a unique voice. Just as I have a unique, distinct voice pattern as a physical person, I have that as a body of consciousness. And I must use expressions that are natural to me when communicating with consciousness. I cannot put something in, Beyonce's words, or Michelle Obama's words, or Judge Judy's words. I have to put them in Kate's words, just as you have to put them in your words. However it is you feel about things, you're going to start to use that vocabulary to communicate with consciousness. Now remember, I said when we use mental depictions to think about what our lives would look like with the desire fulfilled being a part of it, the feeling that comes up as a result of that mental activity is what gets impressed upon consciousness, and consciousness gives us back what we have impressed upon it. Okay? So what happens then when it comes to us not quite hitting the mark when we are trying to manifest something that we want? Well, I do encourage you to investigate the way you feel on a continual basis. I'm going to borrow from Neville Goddard again. He says, when people ask him, why didn't my manifestation happen? Why didn't I achieve success in this thing? He asks them, when did you stop praying? Now, metaphysical prayer is a whole other subject, but what he means is, when did you end the connection? When did you stop that process of impressing upon consciousness to the point of being fully persuaded that your desire was fulfilled, that this thing was physically real? Let's think about that. Let's say I wanted a certain job. and I tell myself, I know I have that job, and I pull up in my mind a mental image that confirms that I have the job. Maybe me sitting behind a desk in an office, really excited in my office clothes and all that. And I feel within myself, wow, yes, I have this job. I get that excitement. I get that confirmation in my epiglottis region that I've said yes to this thing. And I feel that I've impressed that on consciousness. Well, that impression is a stimulus that needs to be of a specific magnitude and sustained for a specific amount of time in order for the transaction, if you like. I don't like that word transaction, but in order for the process to be complete. Now, I'm struggling to find an example, an analogy off the top of my head, but imagine you're pressing a reset button on your internet router or whatever it might be, or you're doing something on the computer and it's saying processing. If you stop, you take your finger off the reset button, or you hit the refresh thing on the computer, the process doesn't complete. It doesn't get seen through to completion. You've taken your finger off the button, and so what you want can't happen. Okay? Failure to launch, if you like. So how does that happen? How do we take our finger off the button? Well, very often what happens is that we are still consciously aware of the fact that we don't have the thing we want yet, and then we switch to wanting it. It's actually easier to want it. It takes a lot of discipline to persuade yourself that you have it, and you become anxious about it. What you can do to help yourself eliminate those feelings of anxiety, to stop you taking your finger off the button or hitting the refresh page or whatever it is by being very, very deliberate about your responses to your anxiety. So what I want you to do today is think about something you want and notice how you feel about it. And if when you think about it, you feel anxious about it, I want you in that moment to break state, stop thinking about it, and think about something that makes you happy until the sensation of your anxiety dissipates. What you're doing by that is slowly starving your fear of attention, and eventually it will not have the ability to exert an effect on you when you come to the point of trying to persuade yourself or persuading yourself that this thing is real, so that you can make an uninterrupted, untainted impression on consciousness. Now, this is something that's going to support you. Of course, if you are able to sustain the feeling, that's absolutely fantastic. But for anyone who finds they are trying, they're starting and failing, this is going to help you. You're going to start the process of starving your anxieties of attention so that they can no longer exert an effect on you. For most people, this happens when they are thinking about money. Whenever you think of money you want, you think, yes, I have that money or whatever. And then you see a bill, or you get a text, or you get a call, or there's some kind of notice. Hey, you still owe us money. Hey, you still owe us money. What happens is that we start to get anxious about it, or you start to get anxious about it. And if that happens in the course of you working on actually persuading yourself that your financial situation is different, then it's like hitting the refresh button or taking your finger off the button. Okay, the refresh page thing, that what I was talking about a second ago. So what you can do, you can also confront your anxieties by looking at whatever bill is looming over you and looking at that, and doing the break state exercise about that until you start to feel neutral toward that bill. That might take a bit more work for you, but one of the easiest things to do is that every time you feel anxiety relative to your desire, you want to stop thinking about it in that instance and place your attention on something else. Now, the something else is usually better if it's something that makes you happy, something that makes you calm or relaxed. It could be something completely simple. For me, it will probably be eating something sweet. I have an interminable sweet tooth. So I can use that. It could be the smile on your child's face, or the voice of your spouse, or whatever it might be, your favorite TV show. It could be absolutely anything. It could be the pleasure of smoking a cigarette, which is really bad for you and something you shouldn't do. It could be anything. So what you want to do is break state, okay, so that you're able to impress upon consciousness in an untainted way. Now, this is something that enables you to recognize more of your spiritual vocabulary. When you see how you feel about certain things, you can start to change the language that you use. So I hope that this tip is helpful to you. I've had some fantastic feedback about the previous clips. People find this stuff this information very useful. I do want to move on to something else in the next clip, but if you'd like me to continue on this subject, do say something below. So what I want you to do, remember your body, in the comments, below, your body of consciousness is a body. It has a genetic makeup, a spiritual genetic makeup. If you want me to talk about that, I can do that. It has ambitions, it has hopes and fears and dreams and all the rest of it. All of these things are impressed upon it. It has its capabilities. It's a body. I want you to think about your body of consciousness in that way so that you realize that it is a tangible thing and that this becomes the body that you start to use when it comes to having the life you want. We're going to switch perspective. We're going to defer to the superiority of our body of consciousness. And remember, it is you. It's not separate from you. It is you. And so we start to look away from the limitations of our physical body and start to understand that we have a whole other complement of capabilities available to us through our bodies of consciousness. Thank you for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next clip.